Oh, wait. Welcome everybody to another Eqafe Google Hangout. Tonight we will be discussing the Eqafe Hangout, overcomplicating the process of redefinition in living words. And today I have Marlen with me. Welcome, Marlen. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Garb. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. And for this hangout, we're going to discuss the, hold on one second, sorry. I just had a little difficulty with this computer, but I'm back now. For this hangout, I usually go over what Eqafe is about, and it is a basic store. I'm going to, in the description of this interview, or this hangout, I'm going to put a link so you can check that out if you want. I'm not going to go and explain it. Just because there is links and it explains it well there. So this is a store that has educational material in support of each one's self-improvement and supporting everyone to bring solutions that are best for everyone. So that's a basic premise of the site, and if you want to learn more, you can check out the links. All right, so in this interview, Marlen, what was your perspective of it? What did you think?
I really liked it because to me it was very straightforward in what the actual problem, so to speak, has been with many of us that have experienced this what moment when talking about living words and how do you eat that type of thing. So we've been talking about it for a couple of years. There's been a lot of material on Eqafe being released about it. But in this interview, Jesus actually explains to the T what is the actual point that we've been missing all along, which is not wanting to actually take responsibility for creating a change within ourselves. And what would that imply is that we know, all of us know in a way, what would be best to live in a certain moment, how we could change, how we could create new habits that could be more supportive, for example, in a particular situation. But we know that we would, as I would see it, we would hold ourselves accountable to, if we leave a word that is supportive, say I'm being lazy about doing something. And then I say, I'm going to leave the word discipline, and I'm going to discipline myself to do this on a daily basis, some task. And I know that I would hold myself accountable to become disciplined and actually do the effort, the discipline, the consistency to do something. If I say, I'm going to leave this word in relation to going for a jog, for example. So if we do that, we would hold ourselves responsible for that. We would have to actually do it and create our plans and schedules according to that. Leave the will to do it. But it happens to be that who we are in our minds, we live in this kind of inertia where it's more comfortable to not create any change, to just leave things repeating the past, even if it's causing us problems and dissatisfaction and a lot of turmoil or instability. In our minds, we prefer living that way, which is bizarre, yes. But we believe that living a word that is supportive would then hold us into this position of taking responsibility for it, where we would actually have to live the word, to live that on a daily basis, for example, with something. And as we've known ourselves in our minds, we fear responsibility. We dislike responsibility because it takes actually doing it. So what I really enjoyed about this audio is that it places on a golden platter the key to learn what it is to live a word, which is actually very simple. You just do it. And I think that a lot of us got like a short circuit with that idea, because change is supposed to be this difficult, arduous thing that you have to process over many years and so forth. I mean, sure, it takes time to change a particular pattern, but that change is not only through just writing and doing the endless writings about something. It's actually applying that change every single moment that, say, I get lazy and I don't want to do something. Then I apply discipline, or I have to actually now decide to do that which is most supportive for me. And that's how moment by moment we go building change. So to me, this is like a key audio. And in general, all the latest Eqafe recordings to me have been very supportive, because they have a more straightforward perspective on what we are missing when it comes to really changing in our everyday moments.
Right.
What about you?
Yeah, I agree with that. I saw it similar to you, where it was like eye-opening in a way, because I've been walking this process for years like you. We've been going over the material for a couple of years now, speaking about it, and I've been practicing it. And, when he discussed the simplicity of just, realizing in a moment that you can change and you can live differently, it's like, it was just so simple. Like, it doesn't seem like it's right. Like, it should be so complicated, and it should be more complex to change ourselves, but really the actions that it takes is just in a moment. It's just here, you just move and you can change into, say, discipline. And yeah, that's really what came through pretty strong, I thought, in this interview. And he goes into other points which were very potent in understanding the redefining and living word process, and again, how simple it can be. So what has been your process, or what has been your experience with redefining living words? How have you walked it, and can you share like some examples?
Well, there's been a few, but I'll take the example of getting back at doing something that I had judged and placed a lot of, sorry for the word, but crap on top of it, which was doing art, painting especially. So I faced the creation of my own judgments around it, my experience, my dissatisfaction, my judgments that I created in the past in relation to it. So when I started painting again a couple of months ago, I started facing all of those judgments back at myself, meaning I was recreating them because that's where I left off last time that I was painting or creating anything. So in that moment, I realized that I had to change my relationship to painting, and still changing it. It's not like I'm done. I'm in confrontation of all of these judgments, all of these ideas, perceptions, beliefs of how it should be, how I should be doing it, what will others say about it, will it be liked, disliked, etc. So in my case, this living of words is more like to, in the moment, if it is required, self-forgive. Yes, the judgments, the idea, the perception, the belief. But at the same time, every single time that it comes up again, then I just have to change. If I'm seeing myself as restricted, constricted in the way that I'm doing something, then I test out something new. I expand myself. I start over again. Like, starting over again, it's something that in my vocabulary wouldn't exist, if I create something, it's done, it's there, and I don't want to do anything with it. Yeah. I start something new, but I cannot just paint over someone, So my own rigidity, my own absolutism, which is also a series of life reviews recently on Eqafe as well, have assisted me as well in relation to seeing how I have been my own policeman in the head, my own creator of limitations, of fears, of judgments. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't faced that with anything else but with my own creative process, which is very cool, because that's how, to me, the words creative authority came through us very strongly in this audio as well, mentioned in this interview, because I had not considered a concept like that. I had considered authority and taking authority of what you create. But I've noticed that with us as human beings, the word creation, creating something, it's like something that we associate maybe to doing something separate of ourselves, making something, but not so much within ourselves. And this is where that word creative authority or concept, I used it to give myself the ability, the power, so to speak, to change in that moment, to go from this judgmental dissatisfaction, almost wanting to give up, into let's try something new, let's paint over it again, let's be patient, you're starting over after a long time, learning to walk bit by bit instead of creating all of these ideals of how things should be looking by now. So to me, it has been a way to expand myself. Lately, that's what I'm busy with, like reinventing myself. That's a key word, for example. Cool. So, in myself, my physical body, the way that I want to express myself and everything. And I'm so grateful about that as well. We take for granted the ability to give ourselves authority to change,
Yeah.
And it's so amazing because I was like, well, who created all of these limitations and fears and ideas of who I should be or how I should paint or how I should present myself? Well, I did. No one else has told me, you have to remain this or that way. So I think that if we take this example and we apply it to anything else, it's like, who has told us that we have to experience dread when we're working? Who has told us that we have to fear making any changes in our lives? Well, we did it to ourselves. And that's a creative authority at the same time, where we realize we've done it to ourselves, therefore we can change it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's very cool points. And I relate to a lot of that. For me, redefining and living words has also been similar as like a point in the day-to-day, my day-to-day living, where I have the ability to expand myself. And through that, through living words, through like redefining words, it's very real time, because in the moment you are like seeing a pattern come up, like thoughts of judgment toward yourself, or like painting. I started drawing recently, and in the past I would judge it and say, oh, this isn't good, I'm not going to post this is ridiculous. But I move through that with living words such as acceptance, such as enjoyment, such as creativity, and pushing myself beyond those thought patterns that are coming up, forgiving them, like you said, and through that sharing and supporting yourself to expand in your world and sharing yourself out, and then you connect with other people and your world starts to grow. So it's an awesome process to take on and understand within yourself and kind of see words differently, and how to live words. How do you do that? So it's a fun and enjoyable process. I see it, to look at words and see what words I see in the spelling of the words, and how would I live that for myself. And it really just opens you up and moves you beyond limitations if you allow yourself to go there. It's all about your own self-creation process and self-responsibility. Like, how are you gonna stand in that point if you decide to live discipline or self-acceptance when a point comes up in your mind that you're now judging yourself for? This happens to me all the time. Well, not all the time, but a lot. Who are you going to be in that moment? And in that moment is where, the simplicity of just changing yourself and creating yourself new, and you just go for it, and you just see what happens. And that's an awesome, empowering moment once you start to really practice that in and move yourself within it, because you expand, and that's a really enjoyable process for, I would say, all humans, everybody in this world, I would say.
You said something very cool, like creating yourself anew, and that's how I experience it as well. In a bizarre way, we keep ourselves repeating the past, even if we know that leads us to excuse the words, but in a fucked up position of the same problems, seeing no way out. And with this point of living words, you start seeing solutions, ways to change, ways to test out new things, which in the vocabulary of people like myself, maybe you a little bit as well, that tend to be like so structured and this is how it should be and I cannot go out of the plan and that type of thing. So we're breaking through that kind of self-created limitations in a way. And to others it might be the other way around. Some might be too free-flowing, so to speak, and need a little bit more of structure in their lives. So I think that the examples that we're giving are just very much related to where we are at and our individual process. But the common ground is that this leads to living life in a much more enjoyable way. Because then you decide what to do, and you are the creator of your life, and you are the one that can consider principles to live it in a supportive manner or not, up to you. But it's you who decides, and no longer blaming anything or anyone because of you not changing or not living the life that you want to live.
Right. Yeah, he goes into that point about how easy it is to blame and justify and go into excuses and go into limitations within ourselves. I mean, that's always been basically how we've lived in ourselves and in our history and such. So how did you take that point about the blame and maybe supporting people that are in that kind of state? How can they move themselves from this blame mentality and not really wanting to take responsibility for themselves to starting this process, and what are the benefits of it?
Yeah, I'll share a very fresh situation that happened today as I was in a body chat supporting through the DIP process, the Destiny process. And I found it very interesting because this person was saying to me, well, I know that I have to leave words, but I have no idea where to start. And I have no idea how it's done or how to create myself. I have no clue of how do I do that. So I was like, okay, first let's start with how do you understand creation, to create something. So it was like drawing a blank again. So I said, okay, take a one point that you want to change within your day. Let's start from the moment that you wake up. So he explained how upon waking up, he's already going into the dread of, oh my God, I have to do so many projects and school and I have to finalize this and that. Already going into a dread, not wanting to do it, therefore going into procrastination, for example. So I said, okay, so that's what you want to change, right? He was like, yes. Okay, so how would you rewrite it if you could live it in a supportive manner? That single moment of waking up in the morning. And it was fascinating that he actually took the time to detail the way that he would actually be physically aware of the moment that he's waking up from the bed, how he goes feeling his body, how he goes not rushing into getting ahead of himself into all of the things that he's going to do in the day, but focusing moment by moment, preparing breakfast, and then kind of deciding to create an enjoyment of getting things done, of getting to his tasks. Of course, he detailed it and gave all of these details, of how he would like to live it and experience it, that I was like, wow, were you aware that you had this within yourself? And he was like, oh my God, I wasn't aware that this was existent within me. So I was like, well, then what was missing? He just had to write it. He just had to make that decision to say, how can I live this moment that I experience as dread, as not wanting to wake up, wanting to maybe stay in bed or something, and rewrite it in the way that I would like to live it, that I would like to experience it, in the potential that I know it is possible and doable for me. So I said, well, what you wrote, if you see, there's a bunch of words that you can live, where you decide to live enjoyment, live attention to your physical, live even the dedication to making his breakfast in the way that he likes, to being aware of his physical body, of the senses. He described smells and things like that. So I was like, all that's missing now is to do it. And that's the magical thing with living words, because I don't know you, but I think that many of us had at the beginning this idea that living words, it was like this magical wand of, okay, I'm going to live this word and I should be changed by now if I just mention it or if I just redefine it. But it's not like that. You have to actually, in a consistent manner, live, become that expression, embody that, say, enjoyment. I decide to enjoy myself in making breakfast in the morning, for example. And all of these points are decisions that we make, from living dread or tiredness or dissatisfaction into how can I change this moment for myself. So in this case, the guy was quite astounded that he had it within himself to see what is the best way that he would like to live. He just hadn't taken the time to actually write it and even consider it then living it or applying it. So I mean, it's as simple as that. And of course, it's not like this shortcut self-forgiveness and all of that, because if he would experience some major emotional conflict, sure, you have to go back to your drawing board and write self-forgiveness and understand what you're experiencing. But if he has already done that so many times and still believes that he has to find something, the reason because he's not changing, I was like, no, what's missing there is just you deciding to change in that moment when you wake up, and prevent all of the day's dread at the end of the day because of you only procrastinating or thinking on the problems only instead of looking at solutions and creating them if they're not there. So that key word there, creating solutions, to many of us, many people, is just not there. So it's like rewiring ourselves.
Yeah, what's coming up now, it's like a muscle. You have to train and you have to get stronger. It's like riding a bike. You have to keep getting onto that bike until it becomes more natural. And in this process, points are going to come up and emerge that you haven't looked at, you haven't dealt with, and you haven't understood before within yourself. Points come up. Yesterday, a point came up within me that I had been looking at. It was irritation. I had been looking at it, kind of understanding it, but something clicked in me yesterday, and this whole point opened up for me. So my point is that, you know, as we walk this process, it's not going to be something that's, okay, we live a word, it's done, we're changed, and life is going to be great now. It's more, we slowly but surely progress and accumulate ourselves as the living word, as we create ourselves within that, to be able to live it more consistently. That's how I've experienced it anyways. It's been something that at times it is like a confusing thing. Like, how am I supposed to live this? How am I supposed to change now? Like, what do I have to do? And I have to kind of sit with it for a couple of days and look and kind of observe myself. And things will come up during the day that will support me to understand the point more. So you kind of like, it's kind of like a daily awareness process of yourself, and you use the writing and the self-forgiveness to understand more of who you are within the emotional type patterns that come up, and through that the living words will emerge. And you know, you can even start writing about how to live words, understanding how to live words more. That will support you in your day-to-day living, to remember to live a new word here. Live, oh, I've done this before because I wrote about it, and now I know the living word to live. So
another trainee also described this because we were talking about living words and we've been working on redefining living words. But he has the idea that, well, I won't remember all of my redefinitions, so what's the point? But as he wrote out and tried to answer himself in looking at who am I within redefining words, he found out that, well, I might not remember the exact redefinition, but I'm creating, and he said it as a, in Spanish, it would be like mental ambience or an environment in my mind that is allowing me to change the perspective with which I see everything. And I like that word environment, you know, like the ambience. You change the environment in your mind from looking only at how things don't work out and only the problems into seeing solutions, seeing the potential. I
Yeah.
also very much like these recent interviews that speak about strengthening the strength and working with points that we are already kind of strong at, and then extending that to our weaknesses. That is another cool way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, that balance of, understanding yourself within your weak points and strengths, so there's a balance. So you don't go, if you start to become more negative in who you are, that just makes it that much more harder to move yourself in your day. So yeah, having a balance of understanding who you are and your strengths and weaknesses is definitely supportive, for sure.
And another point that I'd like to share in relation to how I've lived this redefinition and living of words, it also come for me through being attracted to certain people. I have times where I might have this fixation, like mental fixation towards someone that I mostly see through, say, the internet or something like that. So what I've done is writing down the words that I like about that person, and I then work on those words to see how can I live them. So I then stop being fixated or having this attraction towards them, and instead turn what that person is, who they are, into words that I can live within me, within my context, within my own life. Because I found that it is very cool, actually. It's expansive, because every time that I have this experience with someone is because they are representing something that I am not yet living within me. So this is another way to, if someone has a problem with saying, well, I don't know, what words would I like to live? Then look at people that you like, that you enjoy their expression, and then see what word is that person living or representing to me that I could live within me and that I can integrate in my life, in my way, in my context, in my own expression, because we won't ever be the same as others,
Yeah.
but we can
Yeah.
all live words and expand that way.
Yeah, and we can all learn from each other too. That's another way to expand yourself in your world. If you're attracted to someone, instead of judging that attraction or going into some kind of fixation, you can take from that person, like you were just describing, and find the words. What do you want to live within that expression, in those words? Another point, as you were discussing that was coming up for me, was the opposite side of people in your reality, because there's one person in my reality that is very short fused, and when they get irritated or angry or irritated, they start yelling at everybody else. And in myself, I go into reaction, and for a while I walked through the point a little bit, and then I recently started getting really irritated at my dog barking, because he, when he's at certain points in our rides, going places, he knows certain areas is the dog park or the woods or the pond, so he'll start barking. So I really started seeing it to myself, how irritated I was getting within me, and what is this, why am I being so irritated right now? This is suddenly popping up. And so I listened to the irritation interviews through the Eqafe, and I realized in the interview they were discussing that what a point or a factor that's creating this irritation within us is not understanding how to support the person, or how to change, or how to, you're not understanding how to move forward in that situation. And just through hearing that, I started seeing, okay, the words that I can live in these moments is understanding. And with this person in my world that's short fused, instead of seeing him in this, way of, I don't want to be around him, how can I embrace him more? What are his strengths? What are his points of support that support me in my day? Because there are positive points about him. And so, yeah, through that, it supports with seeing beyond people. Everybody has these programs and systems, and that's what they're called, these emotional reactions within us that make us live in ways that we don't want to live. Everybody faces that, and instead of judging that person or judging yourself for that, you can look within yourself and find words that will support to change those behaviors and change those points within yourself first. Because if I want to change something in another, I have to understand it within myself. I have to change it for myself, because I need to create that. And this comes through also with the point of being responsible, fully responsible for yourself. Because if you're expecting another because I do this myself, I expect other people to change, be the source of that change, so I can kind of be on easy street, not have to really push myself and move myself. But if I live in that way, it's not only disempowering myself, but it's limiting other people around me. So taking that point back to myself, the irritation point, understanding myself within it, and then finding the words that I can live, those words will support me to be with other people, expand myself in my reality, and also so maybe support that other person. So that came through.
Yeah, like that understanding, it's very cool, because it's a point of humbleness. That's how I see it, where that person is starting to yell, it's like, okay, that's the way that he deals with his emotional outbursts, because that's the way that most people in this world deal with that kind of situations, because they haven't yet learned how to live it differently. Therefore, me reacting to it will sort out nothing. So it is like, okay, understanding what that person is going through. Yeah, eventually move on if you can in a way assist. But I'd say that first things first, it's like that self-responsibility point. And also, it's so vital and important to consider Eqaf as a way, the resource to also learn how to live these words, because you and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for being avid listeners of Eqaf. So all the things that we are really speaking about and the way that we are now seeing and learning how to live, it's all because of Destiny and Eqaf in essence. So it is like an awesome source of living tools that if applied, I mean, it's like having a set of marvelous, hammers, and they're just there on the wall, and you look at them and, oh, they're so nice, but if you're not going to hammer anything and use them, it's useless. So tools are meant to be used, to be lived, to be applied. And that's the same with Eqaf. It can remain as this nice library of information, but what the purpose of it is to actually live it. And this is the whole essence of this interview, in essence, of not making it complex and just theory and, oh my God, I have to redefine these things. No, rather push yourself to dare to step into the unknown, to actually get to do it, to step out of the inertia and into self-creation.
Yeah, and if you don't understand something, again, search Eqaf. I mean, everything is on there that you will need to be able to walk this process. If you have a word that you can't understand, look it up on Google, persistence, destiny. That's what I do all the time, and I search it, and usually there's some either Eqaf or someone in this destiny process who've written a blog on it, and you gain perspective through that. So use the resources that are here. And yeah, it's awesome to expand yourself and realize that you can be more than you thought you were. Like expansion, growth, learning, and that births potential and better solutions for everybody. And the world we want to create in this world, it starts within yourself and who you are and how you are going to be part of the solution within your own way. And that's through living words in your self-creation.
Awesomely said. I fully agree.
Cool. All right, Marlen, it's pretty far into this hangout. Do you have any last words or any kind of points you want to close out with this interview?
Well, I had just a last note. I had someone that is quite aware of all the material in Eqaf, but hasn't really applied it yet. And he said to me, Well, now it's kind of becoming clear that living words is not just a once-off mentioning of the word, but you actually have to consistently do it, consistently express or do that which you're supposed to change. And I was like, well, yeah, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
To me, it was like, oh, wow. But it is so, sometimes we don't get it that, yes, it is about creating new habits, creating a repetition. And also it happened today again with another chat that I had where the person was expecting a solution, a change within him just by writing out the correction, and that's it, just the writing. And I was like, well, have you actually lived it and consistently? Because he was giving up in the moment where he would see, well, another moment comes and the same pattern comes up again, so I just give up. And I was like, no, you actually have to be consistent, persistent, persevere in it, like insist on that change. So the words insisting on change were supportive for him, to not get demotivated, like, this living words is not functioning. But he wasn't living the solution every single time that that same pattern was coming up. And that's where the actual, yeah, essence of living words is, where we actually have to do it, live it
Yeah.
as many times as necessary, until it becomes a natural, or just an expression of yourself. It's not like every single moment you will have to be directing yourself to live this or that word, but through repetition and over time, it becomes a new you, as you were mentioning earlier. So that's the last point.
Cool. Yeah, and one other point that came up while you're speaking was the point of giving up is also just a point of, I would say, like not understanding how to move forward. And there is also the School of Ultimate Living, which explains more structured and more in like a beginner's level, or maybe not beginners, but more in depth in the redefining living words, how to do that on the day-to-day basis, how to write it out, and it goes into depth there as well. And those are free, right, Marlen?
Yeah, they're all over Facebook and
Yeah.
YouTube. And
Yes.
yeah, it's great that you mention it, because that's anyone that is like, what the hell is these living words? Yeah, go to School of Ultimate Living, which is SOUL for short, where Sunette explains to the T all possibilities and real-time cases that she's worked with. And I've personally learned a lot through all of those videos as well, to really grasping it and then placing it into application and with other people. And that's been very cool as well. So check it out.
Yeah, I'll place the links and check them out. If you have any questions, or if you have any questions on this hangout, you can leave them in the comments below, and we'll definitely assist. And I hope this interview or this hangout was supportive for you guys viewing. And thanks so much, Marlen, for your perspectives you shared. It was awesome.
Thanks, Garb, as well.
Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.